It happened to me on a Thursday night. I was standing near one of the nightclubs in our city. My wife didn't see me because she thought I didn't know anything and would just sit at home and wait for her like the exemplary husband I was before. But she didn't know that this game could be played by two people. My name's Jackson. And up until a few months ago, I would have sworn on everything I had that my wife, Elena, would never lie to me. I used to believe we were solid. We had a rhythm, not perfect, but ours. Late-night grocery runs. Sunday coffee by the window. Inside jokes whispered under breath at boring work parties. That kind of love. That kind of trust. But over time, something shifted. She started mentioning work events more. Not with guilt, that would have been easier to spot, but with this effortless cool, like she was just checking it off her list. It's a client dinner downtown, she'd say, tossing her heels in a bag without even looking at me. Nothing fancy. But I noticed the perfume. The second coat of mascara. The way she'd pause just a moment too long when she thought I wasn't watching. Still, I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because I needed to be sure. And tonight, I was. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Inside that nightclub, behind all the lights and music, was Elena, the woman I gave everything to. And tonight, I wasn't just some guy waiting at home. I wasn't going to let her keep the upper hand. That's why I wasn't alone. I glanced over at the passenger seat. Maddie sat there, an old friend, someone who used to light up rooms just by walking into them. We hadn't talked in years, but when I called, she said yes without hesitation. No questions. Just presence. She looked at me and smiled, sensing the storm behind my quiet. You sure about this? I nodded, jaw tight. I have to be. Minutes later, we stepped out into the night. The cold hit like a slap, but inside the club, it was heat and chaos, strobe lights flickering across glossy floors, people packed in tight, bodies swaying in rhythm. It was loud enough to lose your thoughts in. But mine were sharp. Focused. We made our way to a booth near the back, one I knew she'd walk past. Maddie laughed at something I said, something meaningless, and leaned in just close enough to make it look like a scene. Then, there she was. Elena. She stepped in with her friends, laughter spilling from her lips. Her dress, blood red, tight, nothing like what she used to wear for me, shimmered under the lights. For a second, I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't move. And then, her eyes found mine. She stopped mid-step. Just froze. That laughter. Gone in an instant. You ever see someone realize they're no longer in control? That was the moment. She blinked once. Twice. The smile she wore just seconds before cracked, not enough for her friends to notice, but I saw it. I saw everything. And I didn't look away. I smiled. Not cruel, not smug, just steady. Because for the first time in a long while, she wasn't the one writing the rules. And this was just the beginning. It started with little things. That's how these stories always go, right? You don't wake up one day and find everything shattered. The cracks show up first, thin, quiet lines in places you wouldn't expect. A missed text. A strange hesitation. A smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. For me, it was a Tuesday night. Elena came home later than usual. Said she'd been out with coworkers at some karaoke bar uptown. She dropped her bag by the door like always, kicked off her heels, and walked into the kitchen like nothing was off. But I watched her, really watched her, and for the first time, I noticed how carefully she moved. Like every step was rehearsed. Her laugh when I asked how the night went was a beat too long. And her story? Just vague enough to be suspicious. I didn't confront her. Not then. Because I knew if I pushed, she'd only push back harder. Elena was always good with words, she knew how to flip things, how to make you question yourself even when you were dead right. So I waited. But the signs kept coming. She started dressing differently. Nothing too wild, just bolder. Shorter skirts. Brighter lipstick. Clothes she used to save for special occasions now showed up on random Wednesdays. When I asked about it, casually, offhand, she'd smile and say, just wanted to feel good today. Fair. Everyone deserves that. But when it becomes routine, when the only place she's wearing that red lipstick is out, not with you, it starts to feel less like confidence, and more like camouflage. Then came the phone thing. Elena used to be careless with it, left it on the kitchen counter, let it die overnight, asked me to plug it in for her. But lately, that phone never left her side. She'd take it into the bathroom, flip it over screen down during dinner, keep it tucked into her coat like it was a secret. I remember one night, we were sitting on the couch, watching some show neither of us was really into. Her phone buzzed once. Just once. She picked it up fast. Looked at the screen. Didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just stared for a second too long. Then she tucked it back under her leg, like it never happened. I didn't say a word. Just watched. Because I wasn't looking for a fight. I was looking for the truth. And if I learned anything about Elena in all our years together, it's this: when she starts hiding, it's because she's already halfway gone. That week, I found myself moving differently too. I started paying more attention. Not to her, to me. I started tracking her stories. Noting the gaps. Watching the times she left and came back. Sometimes she'd say she was meeting the girls, but her stories would come back with no names, no details, just vague smiles and a lot of, "It was fun. You know, just girl stuff." Except I didn't know. And I wasn't sure I ever had. At night, we'd lie side by side in bed, both pretending to sleep. The silence between us used to be peaceful. Now it felt like a wall. She'd turn away from me. I'd stare at the ceiling. I could feel her slipping, not in a dramatic, falling off a cliff kind of way. No, this was slower. Like sand sliding through fingers. She thought I hadn't noticed. But I had. And more than that. I was already planning what to do with it. Some people lie like amateurs, shaky voice, nervous hands, eyes that dart around like they're trying to escape. Elena. She wasn't one of them. Her lies were smooth. Polished. Just believable enough to keep you from asking the hard questions, unless you wanted to ruin your night. But I was past that. The night was already ruined. I just hadn't told her yet. It was a Thursday when everything clicked. I'd just finished work early. Got home around 5. Place was quiet, her car was still gone. She'd told me that morning she had karaoke with the girls after work. Something about unwinding, something about needing space. I nodded, played along. But something about the way she said it stuck with me all day. So when I got home, I opened her laptop. Now, look, I'm not proud of that. I don't go snooping. Never had to. But when someone you trust starts treating honesty like a spare outfit they can throw on or take off, your sense of morality starts shifting. I checked her shared calendar, empty. We had that app where we could see each other's location. Supposed to be for safety, not suspicion. But that night, it became something else entirely. I opened it up. Expected her to be near the sushi bar she claimed she loved. Maybe a downtown restaurant. Somewhere dimly lit and filled with laughter and martinis. She wasn't there. She was on 11th and Grove, corner of a block with two things on it, a closed-down mattress store, and a nightclub called LUX. I zoomed in, just to be sure. Still there. Wasn't moving. That karaoke with coworkers line. Gone. Dissolved in the glow of a neon sign I'd never even heard her mention. I stared at the screen for a long time. You ever get that numbness in your chest? That eerie calm that comes after the panic? Like your body knows something your heart hasn't caught up to yet. That was me. I didn't scream. Didn't punch a wall. Didn't even call her. I just sat there. Phone in hand. Truth pulsing on the screen like a lighthouse cutting through fog. She was lying to me. Not just bending the truth or sugarcoating some harmless girl's night. No, this was deliberate. A hidden pattern. Something she'd done more than once. Because when I checked her location history, LUX wasn't a one-time blip. It was a trend. 3 Thursdays in the last 5 weeks. Each one labeled something different: client meeting, book club, happy hour. But they all landed at the same spot. That club. That lie. I didn't even need to know who she was meeting. Not yet. The real betrayal wasn't a person. It was the story. And she told it with a straight face, over breakfast, over kisses, over love yous that now tasted like rust in my memory. So I made a decision. No confrontation. Not yet. I wanted her to feel safe, confident, like she still had the upper hand. Because if there's one thing I've learned about people who build lies like castles, they never expect the drawbridge to be lowered from the inside. I closed her laptop, stood up slow, and looked around the room. Same couch. Same pictures on the walls. Same woman walking through the door in a few hours with a story she'd already practiced in the mirror. But the difference? I wasn't the same man anymore. I'll be honest with you, when the walls start closing in, it's easy to feel like you're the only one inside the room. But sometimes, all it takes is one conversation to remind you you're not completely alone. Her name was Madison. We hadn't spoken in almost 3 years, not really. Just the occasional birthday text or, "Hey, saw this and thought of you," on social media. We met back in college. Shared a few late-night drives, a couple too honest talks, and once, almost kissed. But we never crossed that line. Mostly because, when she started catching feelings, I was already in love with Elena. And out of respect, for me, for my marriage, Madison kept her distance. Funny how time doesn't erase people. It just puts them on a shelf. That night, I reached out. I wasn't sure why, exactly. Maybe because I needed a voice outside my own head. Or maybe, and this is harder to admit, I needed to feel like someone still saw me. Not as a husband. Not as a fool. Just me. I sent her a message that said, "Got time to talk? Could use a friend." She replied in less than 5 minutes. By the next evening, we were sitting across from each other in this quiet little coffee shop on West Main. The kind of place with flickering candles on every table and a jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked since 2006. She looked the same, kind eyes, sharp mind, that calm energy that made you feel like you didn't need to impress anyone. She let me talk. And I did. For over an hour, I told her everything, from the first time Elena said, "Just drinks with coworkers," to tracking her location, to realizing how long I'd been sleeping next to someone I didn't recognize anymore. Madison didn't interrupt. Not once. She just listened, sipping slowly from her tea, like she already knew half the story but wanted me to say it out loud anyway, like saying it gave it permission to be real. When I finally leaned back, exhausted and raw, she tilted her head and asked softly, "So what do you want to do now?" I paused. Thought about it. I didn't want revenge. That's not who I am. What I wanted was clarity. And maybe a little dignity back. Just enough to walk through my own front door and feel like I still had a spine. I want her to feel it, I said. Not pain. Not rage. Just clarity. I want her to see who she's become when she thinks I'm not looking. Madison nodded slowly, like she understood exactly what that meant. Then let's help her see it. She said it so calmly, like we were talking about a weather forecast. And right then, something clicked. She wasn't trying to be the other woman. This wasn't about replacing Elena or proving something. This was about helping me draw a line in the sand, and standing beside me when I finally stepped over it. So I asked her, carefully, respectfully, if she'd be willing to show up somewhere with me. Not as a date. Not even as a romantic gesture. Just as a mirror. One Elena wouldn't be able to look away from. Madison didn't hesitate. You tell me where and when. And just like that, I wasn't alone in this anymore. I left that cafe with something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. And a plan. The funny thing about preparing for a confrontation is, it's never about the moment itself. It's about the build-up. The rituals. The way you put on armor without anyone noticing. That Friday, I spent longer than usual in front of the mirror, not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because I was done looking like a man who didn't know what was going on around him. I bought a new shirt. Simple. Dark navy. Slim fit. One of those shirts that doesn't scream for attention but holds its own when you walk into a room. I paired it with jeans clean enough for dinner and shoes that actually matched. Nothing flashy. Just deliberate. I trimmed my beard. Put in a little product. Nothing over the top, but enough for Elena to notice something had shifted, even if she couldn't put her finger on it yet. When she asked that morning what I had planned for the night, I gave her the same energy she'd given me so many times before. Late work dinner. That was it. No extra explanation. No forced smile. I just said it and kept sipping my coffee, flipping through a news app like the conversation meant absolutely nothing to me. Her eyes flickered, not for long, but I caught it. That brief stutter in her calm. She wasn't used to that. Me playing her script back to her. By mid-afternoon, I confirmed the table at LUX, the same club her location pinged every time she told me she was out with the girls. I knew the layout, knew exactly where the booths were, how the lighting hit the bar, which side of the room offered the best line of sight without being obvious. Madison and I planned to arrive early, not to hide, not to ambush. Just to exist. That was the point. To show up. Look composed. Unbothered. To remind Elena, without saying a single word, that she wasn't the only one who could keep secrets or hold her composure in a crowded room. And before I walked out the door, just as I grabbed my keys, Elena appeared at the hallway mirror. She was adjusting the strap on a new red dress I'd never seen before. One that clung tighter than usual and left little to the imagination. She caught me watching. "Don't wait up," she said with a little smile, like she'd just thrown a match over her shoulder. I smiled back, but mine didn't reach my eyes. Wouldn't dream of it. Then I walked out, calm, steady, and for the first time in a long time, fully aware of the game I was playing. Not to hurt her. Not to get even. But to reclaim the part of myself I'd quietly handed over months ago, without realizing she was already walking away. It was one of those nights where the air buzzes louder than the music. Madison and I arrived early, just like we planned. LUX was already heating up, the kind of place where time doesn't pass normally, where every neon flicker feels like it belongs in a dream you're not sure you want to wake up from. We found a booth off to the right of the dance floor, not hidden, but just tucked far enough to feel deliberate. From there, you could see the whole club unfold like a slow, chaotic painting. Madison looked incredible, not in a flashy way, but in a way that turned heads without trying. She wore black. Simple. Elegant. And most importantly, she carried herself like she belonged. Like she didn't owe anyone an explanation for being there with me. That confidence. It made the whole plan breathe. We sat down. Ordered drinks. Talked like old friends catching up after too much time apart. And in a way, we were. I laughed more in that first half hour than I had in months, not the kind of laugh you force to prove a point, but the kind that sneaks out when you forget you've been carrying too much. And then, right as the DJ shifted into something louder, heavier, I saw her. Elena. She walked in like nothing could touch her. Her friends were laughing behind her, talking loud, already half buzzed from wherever they'd been before. And her. She looked like she owned the night. The dress, that same red one I'd seen earlier, shimmered under the lights like it had been stitched from attention. For a second, I just watched her. Not with bitterness. Not even with pain. Just clarity. This was the woman who'd spent the last few months pretending to be somewhere else. Someone else. And now, she was about to learn what it felt like to lose control of the scene. Her eyes scanned the club like they always did, fast, strategic. She was looking for someone, probably her usual crowd or a familiar face. But when her gaze swept past our corner, she stopped. You could actually see it happen. That moment where time pinched, where the music became background noise and everything else dulled. Her lips parted just slightly. Her steps faltered. And for a split second, the confidence that had carried her through the door slipped, just enough to let the truth peek through. She wasn't ready. Not for this. Madison leaned in, close enough for Elena to see, and whispered something in my ear. I laughed, just loud enough to float through the noise. Just long enough to make it clear we weren't hiding. And Elena. She froze. Mid-step. Right there in the middle of the club. Her friends turned, noticed her sudden stillness, followed her gaze, and then spotted me. With someone else. Can you imagine that moment? That sinking, disoriented vertigo when the thing you thought you controlled suddenly spins. Her world didn't shatter, not yet. But the crack had started. And it echoed under the beat of every bass drop around her. I didn't move when I saw her start walking toward us. Didn't sit up straighter. Didn't flinch. Just stayed there, casually sipping my drink while Madison leaned back beside me, calm as ever. If anything, I made sure I looked more relaxed than I felt, like this was exactly where I belonged, exactly who I wanted to be with. Elena crossed the club slowly, her heels tapping against the floor like warning shots. She didn't storm over. No, that would have given too much away. Instead, she walked like a woman who wasn't rattled. Like a woman who still had something to prove, to me, to herself, maybe to the friends she left behind at the bar who were now watching her every move. She stopped at the edge of our booth. "Hey," she said, with that tight smile people wear when they're trying not to show their teeth. I looked up, met her eyes, and for a split second, neither of us blinked. There it was. All of it. The shock. The confusion. The calculations running behind her eyes, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Me. Here. With someone else. She hadn't prepared for that chapter. "Jackson," she added, a little breathless, trying to sound light. "Didn't expect to see you here." I raised my glass slightly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Guess we both like this place, huh?" Madison turned toward her politely, that same calm smile still resting on her lips. She didn't speak. Didn't need to. Her presence said enough. Elena's eyes flicked to Madison, then back to me. "Who's your friend?" She tried to make it sound casual, but I could hear it, the stiffness under the silk. The tremble wrapped in sugar. And I kept my tone level. Unapologetic. "This is Madison. Someone who doesn't have to lie about where she's going." The words landed like a glass shattering at her feet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't throw anything back in her face. I just let the truth sit there, quiet, undeniable, and sharp as a blade. She blinked. That smile. It started to crumble. Her mouth opened, probably to defend herself, spin something, shift the blame. But I wasn't giving her the space to do that. Not tonight. I turned to Madison, said something about the music, I don't even remember what, and she laughed again, natural and warm, leaning in like we were lost in our own night. And Elena. She stood there, suddenly not the center of the room anymore. Just a woman watching a man she thought she could keep on a leash, slip out of her grip without even raising his voice. She didn't leave right away. Elena stood there longer than she probably meant to, her hand still loosely gripping the edge of the booth like it anchored her to the moment, or maybe just to the version of me she used to know. Her friends were watching from the bar now. I could feel their stares like heat on the back of my neck. They didn't laugh anymore. They didn't shout over the music. They just watched, waiting for her to regain the upper hand she used to carry like a second skin. She finally spoke. "Can I talk to you for a second? Alone?" I glanced at Madison. She gave me a look, soft, understanding, and quietly slid out of the booth. But before she walked off, she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. A subtle gesture. But Elena saw it. And it told her everything she needed to know. I stood up. Not to follow Elena. Just to match her eye to eye. She gestured toward a quiet corner near the wall, out of earshot. I followed. Not because I owed her anything, but because I wanted to hear just how far she'd twist the story. She turned to me, arms crossed, voice low. "Jackson, what is this? Are you trying to get back at me?" I gave her a dry smile. That would imply I'm still trying. She narrowed her eyes. The cool, detached confidence she wore when she first walked in was gone now, replaced with something far less stable. Something far more honest. "You've been following me. Checking up on me." "I checked the facts," I said calmly. "Your stories didn't hold up. I just followed where the trail led." She looked away for a second, exhaling sharply like she couldn't believe she'd been caught, or maybe couldn't believe I'd actually done something about it. "I just needed space, okay," she said quickly. "Things between us haven't felt right." I didn't know how to say it. I needed something that was mine for a while. I nodded slowly. "You could have said that." "And what? Have you look at me like I'm the villain?" "Elena," I said, my voice low but steady, "you lied. Repeatedly. That's not space. That's a double life." She looked at me like she wanted to cry, or scream, or run, but couldn't choose which one first. And then she played her last card. "I didn't cheat, if that's what you're thinking." I didn't flinch. "You don't have to sleep with someone to betray them." Silence. That landed hard. She stepped back slightly, and for the first time, I think she saw it, really saw it. The version of me she thought would always be waiting. Always forgiving. Always hoping for her to come around. That version. Gone. I nodded toward the door. "You can head back to your friends." She hesitated. "You're just leaving. With her?" I smiled, not cruelly, but with a finality she couldn't soften. "No. I'm just finally walking away with clarity." And I turned my back. Didn't need her permission. Didn't wait for her reaction. Just walked back to the booth, where someone honest was waiting. When I returned to the booth, Madison was exactly where I'd left her, sipping her drink, scanning the room with that steady presence that always made her seem a step ahead of everything. She didn't ask what Elena said. Didn't need to. She took one look at me, read my face like a page she'd already bookmarked, and just nodded once. "You okay?" I let out a slow breath and slid into the seat beside her. "I think I finally am." We didn't speak for a moment. The music was louder now. The lights flashing harder. But it felt quieter, somehow, like the storm had passed, and I was standing in the eye of it, untouched. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elena drifting back to her group. Her friends swarmed around her, asking questions, trying to get the story. She waved them off, gave some half-hearted excuse, but I could see it in her eyes. She was unraveling. Because she no longer had control of the narrative. For so long, Elena had been the one moving the chess pieces. She'd managed our marriage like a well-edited script, deciding when to lean in, when to pull back, how much truth to let me taste without ever letting me swallow the whole thing. But not tonight. Tonight, I'd written a page she never saw coming. She kept glancing over. Like she still couldn't believe I was real. Sitting here. With someone else. Laughing. Free. Madison leaned in close, her voice barely audible over the beat. "She doesn't know what to do with the version of you that isn't chasing her." I nodded. Because that was the truth, wasn't it? She built her strength on my loyalty, on the quiet belief that I'd always be standing at the door, waiting for her to come home. But when I stepped out of that doorway and into my own life again, she lost her footing. And I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken or bitter. What I felt was clean. Light. Like I'd set something down I'd been carrying for way too long. We finished our drinks. No rush. No drama. Just presence. And when Madison smiled at me, soft and real, I realized something else. I wasn't there to make Elena jealous. I wasn't there to show off or settle a score. I was there because I finally knew my worth again. And that was more satisfying than any apology Elena could have thrown my way. We didn't stay late. Madison and I left just after midnight, not because we had to, but because we'd done what we came to do. No messy exits. No dramatic looks over the shoulder. Just a quiet departure. And when we stepped outside, the city air felt different. Cleaner. Like it had shed something, too. I walked Madison to her car. She leaned against the driver's side door and looked up at me. "You okay going home alone?" I smiled. For once, the word home didn't carry the weight it used to. "Yeah," I said. "I've got what I need." She nodded. Pulled me into a soft hug, nothing loaded, nothing unspoken. Just warmth. Then she slid into her seat, started the engine, and disappeared into the night. The drive back was quiet. Streetlights blinked by like slow thoughts. The radio played a song I couldn't name. And through it all, I didn't feel regret. I felt steady. But when I walked through the front door, I paused. There was no light on in the living room. No sound of Elena pacing. No angry voice waiting in the kitchen. Just silence. And on the kitchen counter, a single sheet of paper. Folded. My name written across it in handwriting that looked smaller than usual, like even the ink was hesitant. I picked it up. Opened it slowly. "We need to talk." That was it. No apology. No explanation. No fight. Just a sentence that used to mean something, back when we still had the energy to argue. Back when there was something left to salvage. I set the note down. Didn't crumble it. Didn't throw it away. Just let it sit there. Then I walked into the bedroom, pulled off my shirt, and dropped my keys into the dish by the door. The weight in my chest was gone. And for the first time in a long, long while, I smiled. Not because I had won, but because she finally realized she doesn't get to hold all the cards anymore. I do. The morning after didn't come with fanfare. There were no slammed doors, no dramatic music playing in my head. Just sunlight creeping across the floorboards and the soft hum of life starting again. I stood in the kitchen, coffee brewing, the same note still sitting where I'd left it. "We need to talk." Neat. Short. Safe. The kind of sentence you use when you want to keep your options open, even when it's already too late. She hadn't come home. Or if she had, she hadn't stayed long. The hallway was undisturbed. The closet untouched. I checked, not because I was hoping, but because I wanted to see if she'd at least tried. She hadn't. And honestly, that was a relief. Because I didn't need a scene. I didn't need a grand confession. I didn't need another moment of silence that screamed louder than any fight ever could. What I needed was peace. And it was already here. I sat down with my coffee, let the steam rise in front of my face, and realized something. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not on her. Not on closure. Not on someone else to decide whether I was worth honesty. I'd already made my decision. Later that day, I took the note, folded it once more, and slid it into the drawer beside our old wedding photo, the one where we looked too young to know how much trust mattered. Then I took that photo out. And I let it go, too. Tucked it into the box where old chapters belong. The ones that taught you something but don't get to keep you. By evening, I had packed a small bag. Not to leave forever, not yet. But to remind myself that I could. That if I walked out the door again, it would be on my terms. No suitcase by the door this time. No shouting match. No final plea whispered under trembling breath. Just clarity. Just the quiet power of knowing when something's already over, and choosing, finally, to stop pretending it isn't. And as I reached for the doorknob, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. No anger in my eyes. No heartbreak. Just a man who got tired of chasing someone who kept moving the finish line. This time, I wasn't walking away because she pushed me. I was walking because I finally realized. She didn't deserve to be the one who ends the story. So I did. I closed the door behind me. And for the first time in months, maybe years, it didn't feel like leaving. It felt like coming back to myself.